Have you ever wondered, have you ever asked yourself why so many people feel lonely, depressed, and disconnected? Why with so much diversity in all of our communities, people still feel like they don't fit in? I do all the time. And as a result of this journey that I've been on in this world, I've come to some interesting possibilities that I'm extremely excited and passionate about sharing with you today. See, since I was a kid, I felt different, that my world was divided into two. Half of me felt I was in a world in which that I was born into, my family, my neighbor, my family, their culture, and their stories. And the other half of me was in the society in which that I was raised, my neighborhoods, my schools, and with my peers. Both were equally as important to me, and so the battle was on from a very early age. I grew up with immigrant parents, Italian immigrant parents, who had a strong sense of family and traditional values, where almost everything was based on we, not me, meaning that my family as a whole was more important than me as an individual. There were lots of rules, and there really wasn't any room to question them. I remember asking my mom why all the kids got the good stuff, you know, the fruit roll-ups, the craft dinner, way less rules. And I remember my mom saying to me, "Loretta, you are getting the good stuff." As a kid, you can imagine, I strongly disagreed. My other world felt and looked much different. In this part of my world, what I wanted was way more important than what we wanted. The kids I spent time with had far more freedoms. They got to watch whatever they wanted on TV. They ate all kinds of junk food, stayed up until late, and their parents bought them all kinds of cool stuff. Don't even get me started on the allowance issue. My worlds often collided. Half of me wanted nothing more than to feel freedom, and the other half wanted nothing more than to feel safe with guidelines and rules. Little did I know that the battle between me and we would actually be the ongoing and underlying theme to all my successes and all my challenges for my life. The more I paid attention to this theme in my life, the more I realized that I actually wasn't the only one having this fight too. So what I thought I'd do today is I'd share with you a snapshot of this crazy journey that I've been on and what it's resulted of because of it. My past, the present, and what I hope is our future. I've already shared a little bit with you about my past, but what I didn't tell you is that all this fight between me and we and trying to figure out who I was caused a lot of pain in my life because of the bad decisions that I've made, not only to me, but also to the community around me. I was constantly trying to find my voice in the world and felt nobody was listening. So I did whatever I needed to get my needs met. By the age of 13, I was using drugs and alcohol in order to escape and at the same time trying to fit in. At 14, I had serious body image issues and suffered from depression. At 15, I had dropped out of school. But it wasn't until my boyfriend died when I was 16 that I started to wake up and look at life a little differently. I started to pay a little bit more by the rules and started to listen to what other people were telling me, but most importantly, I started to listen to who I was outside of what the outside world was telling me that I needed to be. It wasn't until I was 20, though, when I went away to Italy, that to get a fresh new start, that I actually started to understand what my parents were trying to teach me all along that I didn't quite understand when I was a kid. Remember when my mom was saying that I did get the good stuff and I didn't agree? Well, as an adult, I can tell you it actually was the good stuff. See, when I started to listen to myself and I started to look at what it was that my parents were giving me, I started to realize that every time that I fall sideways in this way of life that I live in today, I go back to the basics of what they taught me. I go back to the basics of never give up, always start listening and stop talking, and most importantly, that there is always somebody there to support you. What I discovered on this journey is that if I took the best parts of both worlds and I brought them together, amazing things started to happen. I can look back at my past now and not feel anger and pain, but actually feel gratitude and I can look way to my future and see all kinds of amazing possibilities that I never thought were possible because of the lessons that I've learned. See, because of this journey that I've been on, I've created a charity called the Passion Foundation, which focuses on bringing girls the opportunity to find their own space in the world. And when they've discovered what that space is, they then take that out into their community in a really big way. I've worked with hundreds of girls and women in different parts of the world, and I can tell you that every single one of them shares the same needs, wants, and hopes. That although they come from different environments, the core of who they are is the same. I teach them all the same leadership skills, and the results are always moving. But there's one big challenge. When I go and do work overseas, whether it's Uganda or Kenya or wherever I've been, people think it's really cool and we get tons of support. But when I do that work here locally, the response is not the same. Perhaps is that they feel that we have enough resources here, or that it's far more needed overseas. I'm not quite sure. But I can tell you that even though the circumstances are different, the need is the same. Here in Canada, we have a growing number of girls who are hurting themselves through body image issues, pushing themselves to live up to certain expectations and norms while experiencing violence and bullying. Many feel alone, isolated, and like they have no voice, including ones that come from good homes like mine. And the girls overseas, they're hurting. They have a lack of resources. But the core of who they are and their spirit and sense of community is so strong. So imagine if we took the two of them together, the me and the we, and we started to create some change. Thought leaders around the world say that girls are the way to the future. And even though I work specifically with girls, I know that boys are having a hard time too. So what I've done is I started to imagine what are the possibilities. And then my team and I started to take action. We've created a documentary that will take place in 12 countries in the next 2 years to connect with 100 girls in different parts of the world, to hear about their dreams, their hopes for the future, and how they might get there and what they need. We've already headed to Uganda, Italy, and Ireland, and we'll be heading to India, Vietnam, and the Philippines in December of this year. We've called it Global Sorority, because the idea is that on a global platform, if we can come together to create change, amazing things will start to happen. So far, because of the work that I've done, I've seen endless possibilities. I've seen sadness transformed into strength with this young girl who I met in Uganda in 2010, who 2 days before couldn't stand up in front of a class, let alone have a conversation with me one-on-one. And after providing some leadership tools, she stood up in front of her class and sang a song in front of 74 of her peers that she had written in the privacy of her own home that she thought that she would never share with another human being. And I've seen anger transformed into the purpose with this young woman who I've worked with since 2009, who for the last 4 years has been incarcerated for the crimes that she's committed in this world. And when she started to deal with her anger and realized that it came from a position of pain and sadness based on her past, she then started to create a purpose of healing. And now she shares her story with girls in order for them to avoid the path that she took in this world. And I've seen intellectual overload turn into creative fire with this young woman who I met in 2008, who discovered that music was her passion. And when she started to get some support around connecting how she was going to bring that out into the world, she started using the tools that were provided and started interviewing musicians that adults wish they could at the age of 18, like Lights. And I've seen pain and trauma turn into advocacy of hundreds, with this young woman named Brenda, who I met in 2008 after the post-election violence in Nairobi, Kenya. I met this young woman, worked with her for a month, and noticed some amazing strength within her and her sense of community. With the support of people around her, she started to think about what it was that she wanted to do in this world. Later that year, I received an email on a Sunday morning when I was in bed that Brenda had been kidnapped by 8 men and thrown in the boot of the truck and left. Now, in most places, that would have stopped her, but all she requested from me was more tools and more opportunities so this does not happen to another child. Within 2 years, supported over 500 girls to stay sexually safe and in school, providing them with eco-friendly pads so they don't miss a week of school each month. And this is Zubi, who I met in 2010 in Kampala, Uganda, who is a phenomenal artist. And after a month of working with her and her sister, who's a hip-hop MC, one of the only females in Kampala, and together they created the Young Phenomenal Women movement, where they take their art into the world and share the messages of hope and strength through safety around HIV, AIDS, and sisterhood. And this young woman, Pauline, who I met earlier this year while filming Global Sorority in northern Uganda, who stated that she just wanted to be a doctor so she could make money and help her family. Once she identified her voice, the first thing she wanted to do was to give back into the world. Now, this story isn't just for girls and women. The story and this opportunity of me and we is for boys and men too. If we collectively worked together to take our individuality and our sense of community and bring that together, imagine what could happen. I believe that there's some strength in this, and if the small result of what I've put together has indicated any possibilities, imagine what could happen if it could span everywhere. Imagine that what our future might look like if every young person had an opportunity to find what they are passionate about, work through the challenges of me and we, and then bring that into the world. How might you bring the best of you into the world around you? Thank you.